This is the Biz News Podcast, one-on-one conversations with experts in business and personal development.
If you're trying to communicate better at work, perhaps you should take a lesson from your kids. Harvard University instructor Rebecca Rolland teaches techniques to communicate more effectively with children in ways that let them foster relationships with less conflict. She says many of the same techniques can be used in the workplace, as she explains in this Bizgnus Interview podcast. Would you tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so I wear a few hats. So I'm the mom of 2 children, ages 5 and 10, as well as a speech pathologist and a lecturer at the Harvard Graduate School of Education.
You have a new book out that says there is an art in how we teach, or how we should be talking and listening to children around us. But wait a minute, haven't we been doing it right since caveman days?
Yes, I think obviously our parental instincts can be great, or instincts as caregivers or teachers. However, I think recent events and just our rushed lives have conspired to make us often on autopilot. We're having a lot of logistical conversations, talking about schedules, talking about where we're going next, and it's often hard to have some of those more meaningful conversations.
Well, give us a couple of examples of what you mean by the problems.
Yeah, so I would say oftentimes I hear this from parents all the time. We get into the car, it's the end of the day. Parents are saying, "How was your day?" "Fine." "What did you do today?" "Nothing." Yeah. "Did you have fun?" "Yes," or maybe no. And so, or even, we see kids all the time who want to tell us things, and we say, "Oh yeah, but we have to go. We have 5 more minutes. Let's go." So a lot of times the impulse for children to communicate gets kind of pushed aside without, with our best intentions. We're trying to get places, but I'd like to find ways of helping parents and caregivers have those more meaningful conversations.
Well, what arrow solutions do you have in your quiver that we could apply?
Yes, so I talk about the ABCs of rich talk. A means adaptive, really noticing when your child wants to talk, where they want to talk, and how. B is back and forth, actually noticing how much you're talking, how much your child is talking, and having a balance there. And C is child-driven, starting with what your child is interested in, excited by, worried by, or they actually care about. So I think those 3 together are a great start.
It will be a challenge for many parents to continue talking about Pokemon, I guess.
That is a risk.
How would you apply these techniques to a manager to employee situation?
Definitely. I've actually been asked that a lot because I think you could replace child-driven with employee-driven or even client-driven for business. Really thinking about what the person in front of you is thinking, how their values are being expressed, and even what the difference is between their values and what's happening. So for example, if they made a mistake, how are they feeling about that? What is it saying to them about their self-worth? What next steps could they take? Actually having those conversations and just taking the time to talk with your employees is a really big step.
It seems that throughout all of this, listening is key. Aren't we good listeners?
I think we'd like to think we're good listeners, but we often have a point in our mind. We have our argument pre-formulated. So it can be really hard to actually step back and fully listen in ways that let the other person feel as if they're being heard. And I offer some techniques throughout the book for that.
I was going to say, because they're saying something like this, and your brain is saying, wait a minute, and you're working up an argument against that or whatever it might be. But meanwhile, their train has already left the station, correct?
Exactly, yes. And I see that so often with kids. They'll say, "Oh, my toy ran out of batteries." And we say, "Okay, in 5 minutes we have to get out the door." And they say, "But what about the batteries?" And they say, "Oh, get on your shoes." So we're having these 2 different conversations a lot of the times.
And same in the workplace, I would imagine.
Exactly, yes. I think the employees come with one issue, one question on their minds. Another team member has another question, and we're often not on the same page. And that's one big issue, I think, of the listening problem.
The listening problem. It might be the title of your next book.
Yes, it could be.
What would you like to add that we have not had a chance to talk about?
I would say just especially these days, more and more I'm constantly hearing stories about children's mental health, about teachers' mental health, how everybody needs to have more strong relationships after COVID and 2 years of isolation. And so I think this book couldn't come at a better time.
And if there is an issue about mental health, even suspected, what would you suggest?
So I really do think it is about conversations. Actually, not panicking, not feeling as if, we have to immediately rush to a psychologist, but taking the time to see what it's about, if it's something that's serious or not serious, trying to work on it together, and then if it feels overwhelming, talking to a professional.
Do you have a website where people can get more information about you and your book?
Yes, I do. So it's RebeccaRolland.com with 2 C's in Rebecca and 2 L's in Roland.
You've been watching the Bizgnus Podcast. We welcome your input. Send your email to editor@biznews.com. Thanks for watching.